Any man that loses his father is pretty devastating, especially at that age where you consider now a man at being 18. You know, I just graduated high school, and 2 weeks later, he passed away of a heart attack. He died in the house, and I was trying to give him CPR. I was on the phone with 911. I was trying to save him, and that affected me, you know, till I was 35. I just recently got over that. I had some help with that, because in that whole process, I felt like I let my dad down. And so I took that when I couldn't do anything for somebody, or I felt like I let somebody down. It was like I was experiencing that all over again. And so him passing, and then my mom, she didn't want me to go off to the college that I wanted to, because she needed me there to help her with the house, and she just needed somebody there, and I'm the oldest. So instead of going to the university where I had a scholarship, I ended up going to one local. That was more expensive, but I was able to get in, and I was a redshirt freshman in track.
Welcome to JustMen, a life-changing program that resonates hope as well as encouragement. The program that gives you information and inspiration for the glory of God. I'm your host, Jeff Tate, and thank you for joining JustMen. On today's program, we have a very special guest. This is his first time on JustMen. Please welcome for the first time, EricBurch. Eric, welcome to JustMen, my man.
Thank you, brother. Thank you.
Oh man, it's a tremendous blessing for you to be on our program, and I know that as I tell others, man, you add value to our program, and we just want to thank you for being on our program and just sharing your life story, man. But before we dive into the depth of your bio, just share just briefly, who is EricBurch?
All right, well, I'll first start off, I was born and raised in Detroit, Michigan. Living in Detroit, it was a great time, you know, all black city just about. So I got real in touch with, you know, what it was like to be black, you know. Mm-hmm. You know, it was maybe, you know, a small percentage of white, so I didn't have to deal with the, you know, the bureaucracy, that type of thing. So it was more like, you know, black power thing all the time. So we had black businesses, black restaurants, you know, downtown we pretty much enjoyed the city. When I graduated from high school, you know, my dad passed. And so when he passed, I didn't really have a father figure to, you know, carry me on to that next step of being a man. And that's when I went into the military.
Before we dive into the depth of that, talk about what it meant to you being black in Detroit. I know you put that emphasis on, you know, everything was black. About that.
Okay, well, just being in that type of atmosphere, it really makes you strong. Mm-hmm. So you can deal with others outside. Because to me, the culture shock was to see how other blacks interact with white people. I couldn't understand like why they took what they took from them, and why somehow were in a, like, I would say, like a subservient type mentality instead of being liberated. And so that was a culture shock for me, because, you know, I mean, there were whites, you know, when you do universities and sometimes in high schools, but in the military, you know, it was predominantly white. And so it was times where you did have to deal with that type of racism and that type of attitude, but I always used my experience in Detroit in the military to deal with them. You know, I always stood up like, look, I know what we can do, what we can accomplish, and what we have and what we had. And so I kept that mentality in the military. And then living in Detroit, you learn how to survive and adapt. So it was just, that's what I used. You know, because sometimes when you're too strong of a black man in the military, they want to try to break you out of that. So I learned when to use it, when not to use it. And so that helped me get through that experience.
Yeah. Does the military also tries to just break you down as a man, period, regardless of whether, you know, obviously whether you're black or you're white, they want to break you down, because part of the mold is, right. I mean, I know there's an indication that because you're black, they're breaking you down. Right. But even when you come in with the mindset that you go in the military, they want to break that down too, because they're changing your whole mindset. Right. I mean, you know, conditioning, you know, you talked about not having a father. The military begins to serve the discipline that a father would do. So talk a bit about that part of accepting, you know, that type of transitioning from your culture of being in Detroit to the military.
I went in not wanting to be that person who was way into it, you know, that they'll do anything and everything, because I still had a conscience. I still have morals and values. And sometimes in the military, you have to go against those things. And I would refuse to. It was a lot of times where, you know, I see other black men into it, you know, they all hood and they way into it, and when we're at the range, they kill, you know, I'm like, look, in Detroit, I saw enough killing, enough gunplay. You know, I just want to get education, I want to serve my country. You know, I want to do what's necessary, but I don't want to go overboard. Yeah. And so in that process, you know, I always kept my values. I tried to stay strong, because a lot of times when they found out I was from Detroit, they automatically assumed that I knew how to fire a weapon. So they had the stereotype already, like I was thug and gangster. And I never fired a real weapon until I joined the military. You know, I used a BB gun, a water gun, but that was it. Yeah. I never fired a real gun. You know, they always think that because you're from that type of environment that you have that type of experience. Yeah. And so I showed them that it wasn't true. But I ended up being great with the weapon, but that was the first time I ever used it. So.
I think it's beautiful that you don't let your culture or even people's expectations to define you, that obviously your greatness is far exceeding the expectations of man, and so that's very powerful. Right. Talk a little bit about this growing process, particularly without a father, how that impacts you, your father passing away, and how that set your mindset, particularly, and maybe even setting your spiritual journey, right, in terms of that.
Okay. Well, losing my father, any man that loses his father is pretty devastating, especially at that age where you're considered now a man at being 18. You know, I just graduated high school, and 2 weeks later, he passed away of a heart attack. He died in the house, and I was trying to give him CPR. I was on the phone with 911. I was trying to save him, and that affected me, you know, till I was 35. I just recently got over that. I had some help with that, because in that whole process, I felt like I let my dad down. And so I took that when I couldn't do anything for somebody, or I felt like I let somebody down, it was like I was experiencing that all over again. And so him passing, and then my mom, she didn't want me to go off to the college that I wanted to, because she needed me there to help her with the house, and she just needed somebody there, and I'm the oldest. So instead of going to the university where I had a scholarship, I ended up going to one local. That was more expensive, but I was able to get in, and I was a redshirt freshman in track. So it was the potential to have a scholarship there, because he saw me, you know, run before, but when I had already chose the other school, you know, the scholarship went to someone else, but I went under as a redshirt to get in. And so not having a father figure, I know there's a lot of young men, they're losing their father even younger than that. So they don't even have, you know, some losing them as early as 10, you know, 2. So with me, having my father that long, he instilled a value of family. Now, it wasn't a perfect family, you know, a lot of black families is arguing and fighting and things of that nature. It wasn't perfect, but he instilled in us sticking it out, sticking together, being tough. No matter how rough it is, still be there. And that's what he did, because, you know, I hear other men, you know, talk about their fathers, how they just left and they couldn't take it. But my dad stayed until he passed. So I admired that, and that's what I do in my life. Like, if I'm in my current relationship, I don't want to let it go. I want to work it out. I want to, you know, keep at it, you know, because it's too easy to give up. It's a lot harder to stick in and give it your best. It's easier to quit. And so that's not, you know, something I wanted to do, and my dad instilled that. So he did instill some things as far as being a man, but that next level, you know, like how you know, rear your children, all I can do is go back on experience with him. But to have that grandfather where, you know, for my son, and to call my dad, okay, hey, what I do with him now? He's 10, you know, like, because I can't remember some things, you know, so I don't not having that. But being in the military, I had a lot of men take me under their wing to give me that father figure. You know, what God takes away from you, he always brings you more than what he took from you. Mm-hmm. So I had the one father, but going into the military and being in my spiritual development, I have more fathers than I could even handle, you know, right now. You know, I have men I can call on now and say, hey, when your son was 10 and he was talking about girls, what did I say to him? You know, that type of thing. So,
wow, yeah. That's beautiful. Yeah. And I know I'm going to say, I mean, when I talk to you, I wanted to talk about, you know, faith, family and friends. And I want to save family the last, because I really want you to expound on family. I know that's significant, and I know that you will want to share about your family. But I want to talk about the transition of your spiritual journey with faith, and how that came about, and exactly what has it meant to you in the development of your mindset and developing you into what you call manhood. Talk a little bit about that experience and that process.
Oh, wow. Well, it started when I was in the military, as far as really seeking it out, because, you know, we had chaplains, and I went to several churches on different bases and different countries, and I still didn't, it still wasn't hitting me the way that I was looking for it, you know. And I had many men who try to bring, you know, that type of environment to me, that type of teaching, but it just wasn't hitting me in my soul, you know. So it just wasn't, to me, wasn't powerful enough, or it just wasn't brought to me in a way that it would pull me all the way in. And so when I was in Special Forces, I was in the support team doing the IT, and we were over in Jordan. And when I was in Jordan, I actually saw the different times of prayer, where the whole city where I was at would just shut down. We was on the interstate on a bus, and the bus driver stopped, got off, and the soldiers that was with us, the Jordanian soldiers that was with us, just got off the bus. And they went across the interstate to the side of the road, and they had their prayer rugs. And they prayed, and we had to wait till that was over. And I'm looking at this like, these people take this is for real. That they're actually doing this. They don't say that they do this 5 times a day. They actually, I'm seeing them do that. Everybody. It wasn't just a handful of people, you know, it was everybody. And to see an interstate stop to observe their religious faith, that's just phenomenal, because we had things to do. But to them, that didn't matter at that time. What mattered was observing, you know, giving praise to the Lord, praise to their God, you know, fulfilling that obligation that I say, when I take on this faith, I'm gonna do this 5 times a day at least. And that we're doing that. And I was real fascinated about that. And then when I went to one of the churches there, you know, they said that they left Islam to be Christian. But when I talked to them, they still sound like they were practicing the faith of Islam. So to me, that confused me, because they still was doing a lot of the traditions and practices. You know, so that kind of, I didn't understand that. So, but the guys I was with are all white, and I was like, I don't want to be the black guy, or the, you know, the Negro, you know, standing out asking questions and, you know, making it feel like I'm radical while I'm asking these questions. So I just left it alone. I kept that in the back of my mind. And so when I got out of active duty, I went to National Guard. I was about 4 years ago. I was really trying to get that spiritual enlightenment that I was needing. And when I was invited to the mosque by who's my wife now, I was trying to date her, and she stuck to her guns, you know, and she didn't fold, and she was just like, look, you know, this is what I am, and, you know, this is what I'm looking for. And I said, well, I knew about Minister Farrakhan, I knew about the nation, living in Detroit, because it started there, and it was real popular, and there was a lot going on. But, you know, being a youth, you know, it's like, well, that's what they do. You know, that's what we say, oh, well, they do what they do. You know, I'm gonna do me. It was that type of thing. But to be formally introduced to it, it really hit me the way I was looking for it. Just because the minister, the local minister here in Nashville, he hit points of the Middle East that I was at, and he brought from actual physical to a spiritual. And he could reference every place in the Bible. And that really was like, I was really fascinated about that, because I never heard anybody break the scriptures down and relate it to my real life like that. And I thought that was just what I needed. And so I went a couple of times, and then I drove home to tell my mom I'm thinking about joining. I told my teacher that I went to, she was one of the teachers at the high school I went to, and she came under Malcolm X, and I told her I'm thinking about joining. I was all excited, and everybody was like good with it. And so I drove back from Detroit back to Nashville to make it in time for the mosque meeting. and I accepted that third time I went. And but I still couldn't go through the whole process because I was still in the military. And so I had to do what Muhammad Ali did, and he did a conscientious ejector. And that was the only way I could get out, because Bush said that he wasn't letting anybody out. And I didn't want to go to Afghanistan and fight my brothers in the faith, because reading the Quran, it talks about, you know, our brother's life is sacred, and we just, you know, in Islam, the way it should be, that we don't handle our conflicts and violence. You know, that's what the hadiths and the scriptures for, to go, and whatever problem we have, we go to that to solve it, and be man to man. Like, why are we having a disagreement? And so when I went through the process, I had to talk to the chaplain. That was the first thing you have to go through. And his whole thing was trying to convince me to be a good Christian and go over here and fight these people and fight for my country. That's all he was trying to convince me to do. And I was like, wow. Like, he didn't even take in consideration that I'm serious about my faith. And so at that particular moment, when you talk to the chaplain, you have to prove that you're sincere about this faith, that you know, say that you are. And so I came out of different scriptures in the Bible, because going into the Nation of Islam, before that, I really didn't read the Bible. So if I was doing this outside of that, he would have got me, because I would have no scriptural reference to defend myself. I wouldn't have any other types of examples to use to defend myself in that particular moment. And so what I was learning just in the short period of time at in being a Nation of Islam, I was able to defend my belief just in the short amount of time. I haven't even been there for a whole year yet. And so he was trying to convince me, and we went on for about an hour and a half, and he was finally tired. And I was like, he finally said that I'm sincere about what I believe in, and he signed off. And then I had to go and see the after the chaplain, I had to go see the psychiatrist, because in the form it talks about, you know, people being brainwashed and defecting because of, you know, some kind of mental thing going on with them. So I'm like, ain't nothing wrong with me, you know. So I had to be escorted from Knoxville, Tennessee to Fort Campbell, and I had to go see the psychiatrist. And the psychiatrist happened to be Jewish. And I was like, okay, I heard about the minister and the Jewish people, and it just wasn't good. And so I was like, oh man, this is very challenging, because this guy can determine if I can get out the military and go all the way into my faith, you know. So when he saw me, he asked me, Muslim, right? And I said, yes, sir. And he said, Nation of Islam. I was like, yes, sir. He said, oh, ain't nothing wrong with you. And he told me to go in on his computer and fill out this little analysis test. And we sat and we talked for a few minutes, and when the test came back, he said, you're just under normal stress. And he signed my paperwork, and he said he's gonna send it to the unit, and that was it. And then I had to wait until the governor signed off, saying that I was discharged from, you know, the military. And then once that paperwork came in, I got registered, and I've been in ever since.
Let's talk about your commitment, particularly, not to build any faith against faith, but how do you show your commitment now? And you talk a bit about your name, 2X, in terms of, you know, I said double X, but 2X in terms of Eric 2X. Mm-hmm. What does that mean, and how do you exemplify that or show that every day in your faith as a Nation of Islam?
Well, just how I carry myself now. I mean, you know, in the Nation, you're really accountable for how you behave and how you live your life. And I didn't have that before. You know, even I wasn't a bad guy, but I mean, if I can get away with something, I really was trying to get away with. Mm-hmm. You know, so, and just the whole thing with just how you interact with people and work and everything is so much different now, being in the Nation, because now I have something to say, something really intelligent to say. Now I can talk to someone, and I can come out of the scriptures and give them some kind of enlightenment to improve their day. I didn't have that before.
Wow.
You know, and just every day in our every Monday in our men's class, we go over things in the scriptures and we go deep into it. And you know, even though we're not ministers over a mosque, but the way we train, we could be. You know, so when we go on the street, we can carry the ministry into the street and help people. Wow. And I love that. And I always love to help people. And being in a Nation, it really gives me that power to really help people. You know, I have tools to do that now.
Yeah. What when you start to categorize your mission, I know that many times, even Christianity,
Right.
they seem to put their mission, their first mission is proselytizing to get them to convert into their faith.
Right.
And then after that, then they start to help and to build and whatever.
Right.
You know, which it's always been a challenge for me in terms of one, helping people first,
Right.
building the kingdom of God. Jesus preached about the kingdom of
Right.
God being built up,
Right. Right.
and giving them the tools to make the wise decision on where they're going to go, where they're going to follow, as opposed to grab you, hold you hostage,
Right.
shackle you, and
Right.
then pull you in, and then say, now I'm going to filter power, strengthen you. What is the mission, and what has been your mission in terms of your service? What, you know, when you're going out and you're reaching people? You said something that's very powerful, and you said you want to enlighten people.
Right.
And so how do you do that?
Well, first, you know, the whole mission is to re-educate our people and retrain them, because we went through a process of being broken. You know, today we are broken people. You know, 400 years of being broken. You know, it's not something that's going to happen overnight to point us back into what we used to be. You know, how are some of the things I do? I just use what, you know, I'm being taught in the Nation of Islam, is teaching our people who they are. You know, we have a lack of knowledge of who we are. You know, we're the #1 people of identity theft, because we have a lot of other people who claim that they've done things, but we're the actually ones who's done it. And they put us in this category or in a state of mind that we're nothing. But if our people knew that everything in the world started from us, even the other nationalities started from us. A lot of the other civilizations and other countries, we went in there and built them. We built the US, but we also built Europe. We also built China. We also built Japan. So all those countries, we had our hands first and built those and established that. And so that's one of the things I use, is that I use what we've done in the past to show how great we are, and also relating it to the scriptures in the Bible, that we are these people that they're talking about that's going to come out of this great substance, and we're going to be the ones who build this kingdom. Because you have other groups that's trying to build it, but I feel like that us as a people, we have the ability to do it because we've done it before.
Yeah. How do you get that message across to young black men in the communities that you have the black on black crime,
right,
that it's, you know, at epic proportions in terms of the self-hate? There's a tremendous amount of self-hate,
right,
and that they do not even value the very life that looks like them.
Right.
So how do you get that message, you know, across to them, especially when they are not under the umbrella of the Nation of Islam?
Right. Well, one of the things is just having a presence, because opposites attract eventually. And a lot of our young men don't have an example in front of them constantly, a positive example, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at, if you ask them who their examples are, there are people of criminals. They look at the mafia. They look at some of these guys in these movies, like The Godfather. Some of those are there as an example. They feel like their life should be like that. And some of the guys they showed on American Gangster, like Rick Ross and Frank Lucas, they look up to those guys because that's a constant thing in their life. That's real to them, you know. Until we establish that positive role model constantly, it won't be real to them. It's just something that comes today and leaves. But once that leaves, that negative role model is always there. And a lot of us are there in a condition of they're just trying to survive. You know, as men, you know, we're territorial, we want our space. And a lot of times when we're in a space where, you know, it's like this tight, you're going to fight your way out, or you're going to be angry because your space is being violated. Because during slavery, we didn't learn to really get along with each other. We even fought back then, you know, because the slave master would put us against each other. You know, you're the most dominant male, you're going to get treated better. You're going to get the most women. And you can see that today, the brother who has a lot, the brother try to take it, you know, that type of thing. But to really getting that message across to them is being there. You really have to take them by the hand or the collar and like, look, You know, if we don't stop this, you know, they already know they're going to die. They already know this is what it's going to lead to. They're waiting for somebody to come and grab them and stop it.
But I got to get the family. I mean, because family is so pivotal. I know it's important to you and significant. And so share briefly in terms of what family means to you, and share who your family is. And I know you got to give that shout out, or you and I both be in trouble, man. In terms of family.
Right. Yeah, I have to give a shout out to my wife, Sister Flowery. She's the one who formally introduced me to the nation and started me on my spiritual journey, and also become my wife, and we have a son. So I've been truly blessed in this whole journey. You know, there's things that I've been wanting, and now I have it, and so I have no regrets. You know, I feel like I chose the right path because of all the many blessings I'm getting right now.
Wow, that's beautiful. You know, it's one of the things when you start talking about being there.
Yeah.
Wow, that's it. I mean, when it comes to family, we got to be there. I mean, the kingdom of God starts from within. It starts with you.
Right.
And, as you build that within you, then it's like the mustard seed that grows and grows and grows, and it becomes a kingdom in itself. You know, you have enlightened us, and I know we got to have you on the program again to expound. So we're gonna dive in, especially in just transitioning your faith and your beautiful wife and your son and what they mean to you. But give us last words of encouragement, words of empowerment that has been on your heart heavily in this last closing of our program.
Oh, well, what I have to say is that no matter how people try to steer you from doing what you feel is good for you, you still have to keep forward and do it. Because the minute you let somebody steer you away from that, you would never achieve what God has planned for you. You know, every person that comes in your life is an obstacle, is a challenge, it's a trial. And when you keep looking forward and not looking back like Lot's wife, God will never leave you behind. He'll keep you going forward.
Wow, that's beautiful. Man, that is awesome, man. That is awesome. 2X.
Yes, sir.
Man, praise God, man.
Thanks for inviting me.
Oh, man, it's a pleasure. Stay focused. Man, awesome.